you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is a brand new build. This is actually a Necromancer tank, mostly focused around being an off tank, but you can main tank with this as well with a couple of changes. But this is focused on massive ultimate usage. And this is called Malcolm. If you've been watching the live streams, of course you know what that's about. But basically the ultimate that we're going to be utilizing as much as possible has a name. All Daedras are called something on my stream, so this one's called Malcolm. But we'll get to that when we get to the skills. Anyway, first of all, we're going to go into the stats. Make sure we've got a potion running first. And our resist buff, because that would help. So, we are on 10k max magicka, which isn't that important because we've got almost 2k recovery. We're focusing on recovery for this because of our usage of our abilities, not their strength. We've got 46.5k max health, which is fairly huge. 18.7k max stamina, and we're actually on 1k stam recovery. Now, I know that wouldn't make much sense to most because you hold block and you don't recover your stamina. However, we have windows of opportunity with this particular build, especially inside some mechanics where we do benefit from having stam recovery, so we can get our resources back quite quickly while we're building ultimate. Our resistance is 27.8, but that does actually hit cap if certain things happen and if we keep our taunts up, but I will get to that when we get to the gear because that'll make a lot more sense. But if you've got a minor resistance buff in the group as well, obviously that'll push you closer to 30 for when these other abilities are not active. But again, without over confusing things, I will get to that when we get to that section. You can cap out with this, no problem whatsoever. 64 points into max health. Now, if you don't want to be 46k health and you are quite comfortable around the 40 mark, of course you can bring this down and spec more into your stamina so you've got more to block with. However, you will obviously lose effectiveness of some of your abilities that scale off of max health. Again, that will be in the skill section. Yes, we're a stage 4 vampire because this does require us to be a vampire because we are utilizing some of the skills in their skill line. No, it is not a problem in Vet Sunspire. If you are aware of the mechanics and you plug your CPs to make sure that your spell resistance is up and your dot resistance is up, and of course you've got a decent healer, or you're paying attention to your own skills, you will be just fine. But we'll go over that at a later date when we get to the passives. We are also using the Atronach Mundus Stone, giving us an increased magic recovery because we do want our recovery to be fairly high. And of course we are max health, max stamina, food. Now you can change this to max health and then magic recovery if you really want to, but to be honest you don't need to because we're not spamming magic abilities. We're kind of putting down a couple of CCs and then just moving on to our front bar again. But we'll get to that in a bit. And of course when you see the weapons we're using, you'll see how our magic recovery or sustain is actually quite high anyway. So I'm going to go into the skills in detail. I'm going to explain what everything does, where it comes from, what morphs you need, and of course their application. If you think you know everything already, of course, be my guest, you can skip. But if you do skip and then ask questions in the comment section below that I've already answered, I'm not going to waste my time or your time repeating stuff that's already been said. So it's at your own risk if you skip, but you're more than welcome to if you want to. However, here we go. First of all is expunge and modify. Now this is on here for a very good reason. First of all, it is from the Living Death skill line. It's the second ability to unlock. Starts off as expunge, morph it to expunge and modify. There's two different versions of this. One of them removes more negative effects on this but doesn't restore anything, but this particular one, if you activate it, it does cost you a little bit of health, but you will remove 2 negative effects from your stealth and you'll restore magic and stamina for each ability removed. So if you remove 2 dots, you'll get 1k stamina and magic back. It's very, very powerful indeed. And it doesn't cost any magic or stamina. It just costs a little bit of health. And because we're a tank, we've got shitloads of it anyway, you're absolutely fine. Also, the most important thing, while slotted, not only do you remove negative effects if you cast it, but while slotted, you reduce the cost of all of your abilities on this bar by 3%, including your ultimate. So that is very, very important. Reduction to cost for everything you use. So get that on your bar straight away. Next up is Hungry Scythe. This is in the Bone Tyrant skill line. First ability to unlock, you got no excuse, you get it right away. Starts off as Death Scythe, morph it to Hungry Scythe. There are two versions of this. One is Stamina, one is Magicka. This particular one is the Magicka morph. The Stamina one, every third attack with this ability will of course cause the target to go off balance. But 9 times out of 10 in your groups, you generally have that covered with lightning damage from Wall of Elements and such anyway, or other ways of getting off balance, whether it be a block and the enemy is knocked off, or whatever. You can utilize that if you prefer. However, this particular morph is chosen on purpose because it does hit the targets in area of effect in front of you, and it will heal you in return. Now, it will heal you initially on the first target hit, and then each additional target, up to 5 targets, will give you extra heals per target. and it will heal you over time for 5 seconds as well. So this is very, very good to keep you alive if you need to, especially if your healers are down, or even if you just need that little buffer yourself if you've gone too low and the healer can't quite keep up. And above all, this heal, unlike the stamina version, is scaled off of your maximum health. So the more health you have, the larger the heal. 1 target or 5 targets. This skill is broken as hell. This is your main heal for you. It's very, very strong. Easy to apply. There's your scythe. Anything caught inside of that will heal you. Really, really nice. You don't need to spam it all the time, but if you're in a no-sit situation and you're in lots and lots of ad pulls and you're taking a lot of damage all at once and the healer's not quite focusing you, you can pretty much stay alive forever. It's very, very strong. But as you can see, of course, this costs 2.7 and it would be 2.9 roughly. This reduction to cost does apply to it, and it does to everything else as well. Next up is Pierce Armor. This is in the One Hand and Shield skill line. First ability to unlock. This is very, very simple. It starts off as Puncture, morph it to Pierce Armor. If you hit something with this ability, for 15 seconds, they are aggroed to you. This is a taunt. If you've been playing Warcraft or any other MMOs out there, you're probably used to an aggro system where you have to try and generate aggro yourself and then the DPS can pull it off you. Doesn't apply in this game. You taunt via an actual, hey, you're looking at me ability. They will stay with you as long as this is applied. If you drop it, it will fall off and they'll run away and hit somebody else. If you reapply it, it will stay with you forever as long as you keep it up. All you have to do is do this. Stab it. Now you can see there's 3 timers above the target skeleton. One of them is a broken shield. That is your taunt. So as long as that is active, he's never running away. The other 2, however, are Major Fracture and Major Breach. Now, targets in PVE have 18,200 resistances. This applies Major Breach and Major Fracture. So any physical damage or any spell damage that is applied to the target will do more because you are stripping 5,280 resistances off the target's maximum. Now, this lasts for 12 seconds. So the taunt lasts 15, the resistance debuff lasts 12. It's very important that you note the debuff timer. You want to reapply this taunt at least every 12 seconds. I know you can reapply it within 15 and keep the taunt, but you want to keep the debuff up as well, so every 12 seconds. Bear in mind, by the way, there is one boss in this game that you should not spam taunts on, and that is the Manticore in Sanctum of Phidia. If you're new to the game or new to Trials and you go up against that particular boss, reapply at minimum every 8 or so seconds. Don't go every 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, because it will enrage and run around the room and smack everyone. It's the only boss that you can over taunt, so be careful with that. But in general, keep it up every 12 seconds, you're good. Do not let the taunt run out. Next up is Invigorating Drain. Now, this may sound a little bit weird, but this is also a flex slot. So we'll go over the first option. Now, if you are in a situation where you are pretty much blocking most of the time, you probably can't get away with this ability. So you want to swap it out for Absorb Magicka, which is in the Sword and Board skill line, or One Hand and Shield skill line. And this will basically allow you to block more in terms of the damage input. You can take more damage because you'll be mitigating effects, and also your block cost is down. But if you activate it, you get a damage shield, and one magic projectile that hits you will be absorbed and heal you. So you can use that for situations where that's applied or required. But for the most part, if you can find a moment of breathing space between the boss's mechanics and you can apply this, that's all you need to do. Lasts 3 seconds and you can cancel it at any time. So you can block and stop it. What this does is this, of course, is in the Vampire skill line. We'll go there first. Starts off as Drain Essence, where it does damage and heals you for 22% of your missing health once a second for 3 seconds. But if you morph it to Invigorating Drain, not only does it give you health back, but it also gives you 5 ultimate every second for 3 seconds. Now, if you're not too familiar with ultimate regen, a light attack or a heavy attack, just once, for 8 seconds, will give you 3 ultimate a second. Now, Invigorating Drain stacks on top of that. So if you do a light attack and then Invigorating, you are actually getting 8 ultimate every 1 second, which is rapid. It's very, very fast. You've got to keep your taunt up, you've got to keep a light attack once every 8, and you've got to keep this up. Now, if the boss is heavy attacking you, of course, block. If you're going to get stunned or knocked over, or you need to get out of situations, of course, use your block. But if you have a window of opportunity, you want to utilize this as much as possible. And being an off tank, the main tank is usually the one that needs to block all the time, so you've got so much time to pump this out. And when we get to the ultimate, I'm going to demonstrate how effective this actually is. Again, like I said at the beginning, if you are not in a position to use this, you will still have high ulti regen and reduction to cost with this setup. As I get to the skills and gear, you'll see that. But you can, of course, swap it for defensive posture, which is morphed to Absorb Magic. It's just for mitigating effects and survival. There are other things you can use in place of it if you really want to, but for the most part, it's just one of those 2 skills. Next up is Bone Surge. Now, this is from the Undaunted skill line. This is also a flex slot, depending on your group. This is a 4th ability you unlock. Starts off as Bone Shield, morph it to Bone Surge. Now, what this does is this will give you a damage shield equivalent to 30% of your maximum health. So, yes, of course, the higher your health, the stronger the shield. Now, we've got 46k, so this shield is actually pretty strong. But you basically put it on like this. You can see it coats your health bar. And anyone that takes a synergy from this, they have to be quite close, will actually get a damage shield themselves. And with 2 other members, so them and 2 others, so 3 people, will actually get a damage shield equivalent of 50% of their max health. So a bigger shield for them. Not necessarily in strength of the actual shield, but in terms of percentage of their health. So the higher health they have, obviously, the bigger their shield. Now, this will last for 6 seconds, unless it gets taken off, if it gets hit and takes damage. But it also grants the people that take the synergies major vitality, increasing their healing receive for 30 seconds. So that synergy is very, very important. People should take it. It will protect your group, and it will give them increased heals. So their survivability goes up. So in situations where you can get away with staying close to the group, especially in an off-tank position, people should be taking the synergy because it protects your team. However, swap out. You can change this to Heroic Slash, which means you won't have the damage shield, but you will have increased ultimate regen, and you'll apply minor maim to the target. All you need to do here is activate this, and they will do 15% less damage, bosses included. However, it lasts for 12 seconds, so it's quite easy to keep that up, but the bonus to this is minor heroism, giving you 1 ulti every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds. So you want to apply this every 9 seconds minimum, if you can utilize it. If you're in high stress situations and need damage shields, go Bone Shield. If you're not in high stress situations, use this because your ulti regen will go up. This, of course, stacks with your passive regen as well. Your 3 ultimate a second from light or heavies, plus your 5 ultimate a second if you use an invigorating drain. So basically, if you're just building ultimates, all you need to do, light attack, heroic slash, and keep draining. Drain 2 or 3 times, and then reapply your heroic slash again. Just keep up a light attack in between once every time you cast this, and you will not run out of your ultimate regen. It's absolutely insane. So basically, 6 ulti over 9 seconds. Now, if you consider Heroic Slash will give you 6 ultimate over 9 seconds, your passive regen from your light attacks will give you 27 over 9 seconds, and your Invigorating Drain will give you 45 over 9 seconds. So, you're looking at 75 ultimate over 9 seconds. That is mental. And that's not including your other Necromancer abilities, which I'm going to get to on the back bar. And, of course, Fighters Guild passives, which are also important, and we're going to get to those as well. So there is already a high ulti regen on this, so your ultimates can be used a lot. Now we're going to get to the important stuff. Now, of course, the Heroic Slash side of things, you can use potions instead, if you want. So you can always have Bone Shield up. Where's it gone? And you could use these potions, which will give you minor heroism all the time. So you don't have to apply a skill to get this. You just take the potion, you get stamina regen, you get stand back, and you have minor heroism for 47.6 seconds. We'll get to passives about why that's so long. However, they are expensive to make. You have to hunt dragons to get the materials. If you like that kind of stuff, sure, go nuts. These are amazing. But if not, just make it simple and use Heroic Slash. Now, of course, you won't get the minor maim, but you can apply that other ways, which we're going to get to on the back bar. Now, next up is the ultimate, Glacial Colossus. Now, this is in the Gravelord skill line. Starts off as Frozen Colossus. There is another morph for this, which does physical type damage, so poison, disease, that kind of stuff. But that's not the one you want. You want this one, because this one has a stun at the end of it, which really helps in area of effect. But above all, it's not for the damage. Although the damage is very high if this is on a DPS, it's not that high for us on a tank. The most important thing that this applies is this grants all of your group members a damage bonus. And how that is applied is the target that is affected by this, any targets that are affected, are inflicted with major vulnerability. The Necromancer is the only class in the game that has this kind of debuff, if you like. Major vulnerability for each target hit for 3 seconds. And the hits are actually 3 different hits. So it'll hit and hit and hit. Over each one, it will refresh us. So this actually lasts for 5 seconds. And it increases all damage done to the targets affected by 30%, which is freaking huge. Now, the trick to this is, of course, you want to keep the uptime up. It's about 225, 235 ultimate depending on your race. But because of the way we are set up, this is a tiny 160 ultimate. This costs us nothing. It's so cheap. Now what you need to do is make sure, of course, you get as many targets as possible caught in here, because this is what happens. There is Malcolm. Boom, 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 Hulk smash. Amazing. Now, let's just say for argument's sake, we need to build ultimate, which we do. So we'll take a minor heroism potion, which is heroic slash. We'll just imagine we've got that running, and we'll light attack our asses off while draining. Now watch the ultimate regen. That is incredibly fast. I've done 2 drains already and I'm halfway through. By the time you get to 4 drains, you're almost there. Perhaps 5. Now as an off tank, this is extremely easy to fire off. And of course, we can use Malcolm again. You can make it even quicker inside your rotations or inside your content. If other things die, you start consuming corpses, or you use a certain ability that allows you to consume your own corpses, like most necromancers can do, and that's now coming up on the next bar. So the next bar, we double bar expunge and modify. The reason for this isn't because we want to negate or remove negative effects on both bars. That's not the point of it. The point of it is reduction to cost on both bars. So anything we use on this bar also is cheaper. So our ultimate, whatever we put on either bar, is always going to be cheaper. So we cover this. But if you want to use something else here instead and always use your front bar for your ultimates, it's entirely up to you. But I like to have utility and have 2 different ones. Now next up is Unnerving Boneyard. This is in the Gravelord's skill line. Third ability to unlock is called Boneyard. Morph it to Unnerving Boneyard. There's a very good reason for this. This does do frost damage in area of effect and lasts 10 seconds. But the reason we've chosen this morph is because it does area of effect, major breach, and fracture to all enemies within. Now, if you paid attention to the taunt, this applies major breach and major fracture. But he hasn't got it, because I haven't taunted him yet. So I have to taunt him for the debuff, I have to taunt him for the debuff. Sure, maybe I'm going to keep a taunt up on these guys most of the time, but the debuffs might fall off. Or perhaps I'm holding everything still and just taunting the main target while everybody smacks the ads. While they're smacking the ads aren't debuffed. But if you put this down, that's debuffed and that's debuffed. Anything caught inside of this will have area of effect, major breach, and major fracture. This makes killing stuff in area of effect so much more effective, because this debuff covers a huge amount of space. So normally you just taunt something and then you've got to mess around with all the rest of it. They're taking less damage. It takes time. It's a mess. But this ability alone takes away that timer where you're not applying your maximum damage, or the most you can. It's very, very effective. So you want to keep this down at all times, especially in ad pulls. It does have a synergy as well, and it can consume a corpse on cast, so be careful of that if you don't want to consume a corpse right now, to make it stronger. The damage over time, again, is not what we really use it for, but it does do damage over time. So it will help a little bit. But above all, this is for the major breach and major fracture. Now also consider this is frost damage. So all frost damage has a chance to apply minor maim as a status effect. So you could actually reduce their damage while they're in your face as well. This is very, very handy for a chance to debuff, but also a guaranteed major breach and major fracture. It's very, very powerful. If you've got those big ad pulls, especially if you're using easy sorks and you want that extra damage pumped out, and you know that the tank's obviously just holding one thing and the rest are going to die, well, they're going to die a lot quicker now. Anyway, next up is Beckoning Armor. This is in the Bone Tyrant skill line. Second ability to unlock. Starts off as Bone Armor, morph it to Beckoning Armor. Now, what this does is this grants you major resolve and major ward. You may notice, if you're not familiar with this game, that that's the same numbers as the resistance debuff. It's the opposite effect. Instead of being a reduction to resistance, this is an increase to resistance. So this is for us only. As you can see there, we've got our bone backpack on. While that's active, you'll have 20 seconds worth of extra resistances, which as a tank you will need, of course. Also, enemies that strike you with ranged attacks will be pulled towards you once every 3 seconds. So if this guy over here is getting a bit brave and he starts shooting arrows at me, or if I taunt him, for example, he's definitely going to hit me. He hits me once and I've got this ability on, he will come to me and he'll land at my feet. That'll happen once every 3 seconds. Be very careful if you're on VMOL on the twins, because that one can be a little bit tricky. But above all, this is a very good, free, by the way, chain ability. You don't have to spam chains over and over and over like you do on the DK or with Silver Leash, which of course you can still slot if you prefer. But this will actually pull them to you for nothing, just for holding this resistance buff on. If you have a Warden in your group and your resistance buff is already covered, then of course you don't need to slot this, and you can just put Silver Leash on instead to pull stuff in, or you can use anything else of your choice. It's entirely up to you. But keep this resistance buff up at all times if you can. Also consider this drops a corpse when it runs out. Why is that important? Remember our ulti regen is about 75 over 9 seconds? Well, we're going to get more than that, because our next ability is Necrotic Potency. This is also from the Bone Tyrant skill line. It's the third ability to unlock. Starts off as Bitter Harvest, morph it to Necrotic Potency. Every single corpse that you siphon or consume will give you 6 ultimate. Like so. All you have to do is use that on a corpse. And this skill, when it runs out, drops a body on the floor for you. So once the body's dropped, or you reapply it and the body drops, you can cast it. Just note, by the way, this skill has to get down to 7 seconds or under before you can consume it, so don't spam it. But this is incredibly powerful. If there's 6 bodies on the floor and you use this, 36 ultimate is yours. You gain 75 over 9 seconds plus 36 on top of it. It's insane. If you do that over 9 seconds, you gained 111 ultimate, which is only 49 away from another Malcolm usage. It's very, very fast. So if you had 5 seconds uptime on Malcolm for the major vulnerability, you use 9 seconds of ulti regen. He's only been down for 4 seconds. You're way over halfway into another ultimate already. It's nuts. Now, you want to make sure you pay attention to this as much as possible. It's really, really important that you do utilize this as and when you can, but be careful of your bar swaps. If you are holding block right now and you're getting hit by a heavy attack and you bar swap to get to that skill, of course you can block on your ice staff, but watch my shield visual in front of my bar. Watch very carefully. You drop your block when you swap bars, even if you're holding it. So do not do that during a heavy attack. Any tanks, especially new ones, you need to learn this. Do not swap bars while blocking a heavy attack. Take it, then swap. Then consume it, then go back if you need to. Next up is Agony Totem. Now this is nuts. Absolutely nuts. This is in also the Bone Tyrant skill line. This is the 4th ability you unlock. Starts off as Bone Totem. Morph it to Agony Totem. Now we're going to go and find some zombies so I can demonstrate this one, because some people may be unsure of how this works. But basically this grants you minor protection and people close to you. So you can see this here. You have now put up a mitigating protection circle, which is nuts. Very, very nice indeed. Everybody takes less damage while inside of it. However, there are even more bonuses. After 2 seconds, the totem instills fear in the enemies. Now, most of the time you're used to fear making people run away. This doesn't apply. They do not run. They are so scared, they stand on the spot, basically in stone. They can't move. They are so shit scared that they won't move. So this is a massive, massive CC bonus. Allies can obviously take a synergy from this as well, which will do magic over 5 seconds. And apply minor vulnerability. Minor vulnerability increases the damage done to the targets by 8%. Major vulnerability increases the damage done to the targets by 30%. And these stack. So when it comes to people trying to keep up minor vulnerability and such, this one is actually applied just from a synergy. It's very, very nice. Now we're going to go to some zombies just to demonstrate this real quick. Now, of course, if you're used to CC area of effect abilities from perhaps the DK or the Warden and stuff like that, you'll note that most ground-based immobilization skills will just immobilize the enemy. It will keep them still, but they can still hit you. This is completely different. This is a souped-up CC, if you like. It doesn't work on bosses, of course, but the minor protection does apply, and so does the minor vulnerability. But watch this. There's your debuff for Major Breach, and here is your stun. Everything is stunned. Can't do a damn thing. So no one's getting hit. It's not just a damage mitigation like most CCs. Nothing can hit you while they're stunned. Now, obviously, this isn't built as a DPS build. I'm just killing them anyway, but you get the idea. If you can fire this up, all you need to do, drop it down. Everyone's protected. No one can move. They can't do anything. Malcolm them in the face. Now, as a DPS, of course, that would do a lot more damage, Malcolm and the other AoEs, but that's not what they're for. They're there for CC. Also note, look at the ultimate. Very, very quick to gain ultimate. Now, of course, this needs to be down and this needs to be down as much as possible. Now, it does last 9.5 seconds and this does last 10 seconds. So you've got a really good window to kind of recover your magicka before you need to actually reapply them. So don't spam them. Like I just showed there, everything gets stunned, and they do have a CC as well. So the 4 seconds that they're actually held in place and stunned, you do have to consider that they will be immune to stun for another 6 seconds or so. So only apply this once every 10 seconds if you can help it. That way you won't burn out of your magicka. Now this ultimate is a flex slot. We do want to use Malcolm as much as humanly possible. It's 160 ultimate. We can generate it incredibly fast. But if you're not the one to apply this, and if you just want to be the one to build up warhorns, our warhorn, instead of 250 ultimate, only costs 178. Now if you go down to our assault skill line, you will have to go to PvP for this. Get warhorn, morph it to aggressive warhorn. Now if you don't like PvP, just go into battlegrounds. Even if you lose, you'll get alliance points. It will take you nearly no time whatsoever to unlock this. But once you apply this for 30 seconds around a 20-meter radius, everyone in your group will have increased maximum stamina and maximum magic by 10%. At the same time though, they will gain major force, increasing their critical damage done by 15% for 9 seconds only. Now of course, with it being 250 ultimate usually, that's quite hard to keep up, and your group will have to rotate warhorns, and there will be gaps. Now if you're staggering across warhorns with somebody else as well, based on how fast you can fire yours off, you can normally fire yours twice every time they fire one. It's absolutely mental, maybe even faster. In testing, in situations where you're in combat, I've managed to make warhorn actually apply, in ad pulls in fact, between 20 and 25 seconds, every 20 to 25 seconds. In fact, the quickest was 18. It's really, really fast. So in a group where you're kind of keeping up these bonuses, you are a very, very valuable asset. You can fire these out left, right, and center. It's nuts. You are capable of building ultimate so fast. This ultimate should cost around 335. For us, it's 238. 3 dead bodies on the ground, picked up instantly. This is your resurrection ultimate. It is absolutely broken. For every person that you resurrect, you get 5,300 magicka and stamina back. So if you are in a situation where you've got Malcolm, he's about to be fired, something goes wrong, oh my god, everyone's dying, build up a little bit more ultimate and fire off this. This will insta-res 3 people as long as you've actually targeted them correctly or they're in range. And all they have to do is accept it. You don't have to sit there holding resurrection for 5 seconds. You just press this button. It is absolutely broken. So I would highly recommend this ultimate on the front and this ultimate on the back. But like I said, if you need warhorns, boost it out instead, and they don't want the major vulnerability because they already got it covered. Maybe you've got 10 necromancers, who knows. Warhorns you can fight all day long. The res ulti is your oh shit moment. Now, of course, this does come from the Live and Death skill line. You need to be level 12 in the skill line to unlock it. Starts off as Reanimate, morph it to Renewing Animation. If you take the other morph, you spawn loads of skeletons that explode. This is the one you want for resource gain. It's absolutely mental. And for shits and giggles, if you fancy it, you can, of course, put on Ravenous Goliath on your front bar from the Bone Tyrant skill line. And this will actually give you 30k health for 20 seconds and heal in area of effect and do damage based on your maximum health. So if you want to basically be immortal and try and pick everybody up rather than save a res ulti, this is also extremely cheap for us. 178 ultimate. Your ultimate is restricted regen wise while this is active, but let's give this a go quickly. Doesn't take much to build up. While it's on your bar, you can of course get passives for this skill line, but that's not what it's really there for. Now basically this happens. I now have 93.7k health. I do damage in area of effect based on my max health, and I heal off of it, and my light and heavy attacks heal me as well. This is your I'm not going to die mode. And if you don't have enough for res ulti, you can pop this, survive, and go around picking people up and not die. It's friggin' nuts. But that's more of a fun one, or an oh shit, we need to recover. For the most part, Malcolm on the front, res ulti on the back. You are built for utility. You are made to build ultimates really, really fast. It makes sense that you can pump out damage for everybody or give them a debuff for damage. And of course, be able to pick people up very, very quickly. At least then, the DPS don't have to stop what they're doing. Because if you are handling 3 reses at a time and can rebuild this in less than a minute, if anything goes wrong, you got it covered. Now, I'm going to go into passive. These are extremely important, so do pay attention. Gravelord, of course, you don't necessarily need all of these, but they will be somewhat helpful to you if you use them. This is not relevant. We're not using any pets. This increases your critical strike chance against enemies under 25% health by 10% for each Gravelord ability slotted. We do have one slotted here, and we do have one slotted here. It's not massively important, especially since we don't crit that much. But, of course, if you are applying any abilities that do damage, they will be enhanced if you do crit while the enemies are low health. It can contribute somewhat. So do get this passive. While you have a Gravelord ability active, your spell and physical penetration are increased by 1500. Now, of course, this one does last 10 seconds. We do want to keep it up most of the time. It's not massive damage again, but it does contribute nonetheless, so you can get this passive as well. And, of course, increases your damage done with damage over time effects. Again, this is damage over time. It's not massive, but it will contribute. So if you want to, you can get these 3 passives, but if you're not bothered about any damage whatsoever, you're just using the skills for what they are, for the debuffs and such, you can just dump all 3 passives. It's your choice. Now, you will need these. Whenever an enemy you are in combat with dies within 28 meters, so you don't have to actually kill it, you restore 200 magic and stamina. So in mass AoE pulls, your recovery or resource sustain is nuts. You do want this, but you do have to have an ability on your bar to benefit from it. So on the front bar, we do have the heal, and the back bar, we do have necrotic potency. So this is covered on both bars. So you do want that passive. Reduces the damage you take from damage over time abilities by 10% while you have a Bone Torrent ability active. Very simple. Keep your resist buff up. You have reduction to dot damage. Definitely get that passive there. This one increases your healing received by 2% for each Bone Torrent ability slotted. On the front bar, we have 2%. On the back bar, we actually have 6% because we've got 3 Bone Torrent abilities. So your back bar, your healing's higher. Next up is, of course, the health bonus. Very, very simple. For being a Necromancer, you get this passive. You increase your max health by 1250. Nuts. Get it. Live and Death, of course. While you have a negative effect on you, your healing done is increased by 8%. So, while you can remove negative effects and get resources back, you can also just heal instead and not remove it and have higher heals. So if you're in a really bad situation, you've got a dot on you, keep it on you and heal, and it will be stronger. But if you are quite healthy with your health and your survivability, you just want some more resources back, hit the negate ability. So that does take some figuring out, but you can take advantage of this passive. While you have a Live and Death ability slotted, your critical strike chance with all healing abilities is increased by up to 20% to proportion of the severity of the target's wounds. Now, we do have Expunge and Modifier on our bar, which means we do benefit from this passive. So if you do heal, your critical strike chance with the heals is heightened. So this is more likely to crit, and so is this. When you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 16 seconds. Now remember I said that you can put your resist buff on, and you can consume a corpse when it drops one with necrotic potency. Or you can consume other bodies anyway. Now this will give you 6 ultimate per body, but this passive, once every 16 seconds, just for consuming a corpse, you can actually, or using an ability on a corpse, you can actually gain 10 ultimate. Now, this also applies to our Unnerving Boneyard. So if we actually consume a corpse with this ability, you will gain 10 ultimate. So, again, our ulti regen is absolutely broken. So definitely get this. And of course, while you have a Blastbone, Skeleton, or Spirit Mender active, your Magicka and Stamina recovery is increased by 200. We don't actually have any active, but if you really want to use the Healing Pet, because it does have a damage mitigation effect on it, you of course can slot it, but you will have to mess with your own skills to do so. I don't have it active on this build, but you can choose to if you want, and if you do, you'll want this passive. If not, dump the passive, you don't need it. Now, of course, One Hand and Shield is very, very important. You want all these passives, every single one of them. This reduces the stamina cost of your One Hand and Shield abilities. Fair enough, you're going to want that. And of course, it reduces the cost of blocking. This will increase the weapon damage by 5% of your abilities from this skill line, but it will also increase the amount of damage you can block, so you do want to get that. Improves your standard bash attacks. Bashing deals 100% additional damage and costs 40% less. We're not too bothered about the damage, but the reduction to cost is very nice. This increases the amount of damage you can block from projectiles, and this increases your movement speed while blocking, because yes, while you're blocking, you're quite slow, but this will make you move a bit faster. Get every single one of those. Destruction Staff. We are, of course, using a Destro Staff on the back bar. Now, this is very, very important. People do not read these passives properly. I keep seeing DPS with an Ice Staff. That's fine, you can do that, but if you do, don't buy this passive. If you're a tank, you need this passive. Each different elemental type of Destruction Staff has its own perks and bonuses with this passive. While having a Destruction Staff equipped, if it's a Frost Staff, your heavy attacks will taunt the target for 15 seconds and give you a damage shield. So, if you are doing this as a tank and you have that passive, congratulations, you taunted the target from range. So you don't have to stab it in the face, you can just stab it when he gets there. But if you do this as a DPS and you have that passive, rip group, you're going to die. So, make sure that you take this passive as a tank, not as a DPS. The only time you want this passive as a DPS is if you're using a Flame or a Lightning Staff. Very important. this skill tree and your light and heavy attacks ignore 10% of the enemy's spell resistance. Not massively important for us, but it can help a tiny amount if you really want to. Increases your chance to apply burning, concussion, and chilled status effects by 100%. That will help with this. See, this here is ice, and it has a chilled status effects, which can apply minor maim. This bar, while on this bar only, not while on the other bars, because these passives only apply here, you have a heightened chance to do that. This is very important. Also, while you have a Destro Staff equipped, your Frost Staff reduces the cost of blocking by 36% and increases the amount of damage you can block. For using a Frost Staff, you can actually get mitigating effects. If this was a Lightning Staff or a Flame Staff, you would get whooped, but because Ice Staff is used for tanking, you do have tanking bonuses to your passives. So that's very important as well. Just note, by the way, if you block with your Ice Staff, it costs magic. If you block with your Sword and Board, it costs stamina. While blocking with a Sword and Board, your stamina does not recover, your magicka does. While blocking on the Ice Staff, your magicka doesn't recover, your stamina does. We've got high recovery on both sides, so whichever one you're on, the other will then rebuild. You can utilize that as a tactic if you want, but be bloody careful. Also, when you kill an enemy with a Destruction Staff ability, you restore 3600 magicka. Light attack, heavy attack, or an ability from this bar can apply to that, so that is also an important passive to get just in case it happens. You're not likely to kill stuff that often, but you may get the odd kill here and there. Also note, by the way, if you are one of those that likes to use a crusher on the back bar for your staff, you can, but you want to use elemental blockade for that. So in situations where you don't need area of effect, major breach, and major fracture, this is where you can apply elemental blockade instead. And all you have to do is keep this up every 8 seconds, and it will apply the glyph on your back bar to your front target. Area of effect adds can sometimes take that, so make sure it's a single target fight only if you're going to utilize this. If there's more than one target, keep a Nerve and Boneyard on at all times. Where the hell's it gone? There it is. Now, next up for passives is your armor. We're not using any light armor, so you don't need these. We're using any medium, so don't use these. And we're using 7, in fact, heavy. This will increase your physical and spell resistance based on the amount of pieces worn. This will give you the Constitution passive, meaning that if you take damage once every 4 seconds, you will actually recover 757 of all your resources for magicka and stamina. So that's really, really helpful. Per piece worn, by the way. This will increase your max health by 14% because we have 2% for each piece worn. This will increase the magicka or stamina you restore with your heavy attacks. So, heavy attack with a Sword and Board will restore 25% more stamina than usual. Heavy attack with the Ice Staff will restore 25% more magic than usual, so you can keep your resources up. Pay attention, do heavy attack. This increases your healing received by 8% with 5 pieces worn or more. Now, these both apply to 5 pieces, and we get them both. Very, very helpful indeed. Now, we are a vampire. Of course we are. This will give you a bonus to your magicka recovery and your stamina recovery by 10% across the board. Very, very nice indeed. And this is essential. This reduces the damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health. So the bigger your health bar, the longer it takes to get to 50%. And when you do get to 50%, you will start taking less and less and less damage. The lower your health, the tankier you are. This passive is absolutely insane. Make sure you get it. And this here reduces the severity of health recovery. Basically, we have a built-in debuff where our health recovery is quite low as a vampire. This makes it less nasty, if you like. So get this as well. Fighter's Guild is actually important. If you do need Silver Leash to pull stuff in, because you've already got a resistance buff and you don't need to apply your own, of course you can utilize this, but watch your stamina. This changes targets to your feet. But that's not what we need it for. We need it for this passive here. If you kill any undead Daedra or werewolf, as you saw a moment ago, I killed loads of zombies and got loads of ultimate. Each one that you get the kill and blow on, you will gain 9 ultimate. No, you're not likely to get kills very often, but when you do, it will benefit you. 9 ultimate back for a lucky kill, when our ultimate only costs 160, is broken as hell. It's absolutely insane, so definitely get this passive. Mage Guild we don't need. Psijic we don't need. Undaunted we do. If you take a synergy, and you will, you'll get 4% of your max health, stamina, and magic back. Very, very nice. Take the synergies. Increase your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% for each type of armor worn. We are wearing just heavy, so we'll get 2% across the board for wearing that one type. If you wore medium and light combined, one piece of each, you would generate an extra bonus where you would end up 2% for each type and end up with 6% across the board, which sounds quite nice. But our stam pool is relatively low, so it won't be a massive bonus. Our mag pool is relatively low, so it won't be a massive bonus. And our health of course, would lose 2 pieces from heavy, so would lose 4% health bonus from our passives in our heavy armor, but would get it back here. But although that sounds nice with the extra stam and extra magicka, you will lose out also because your resistances will go down because of the 2 missing pieces. Your constitution will go down, and so will your health recovery because of the 2 pieces. And your, like I said, your max health will meet in the middle. These 2 are quite important. Your return for resources and your resistances, much more over the top of 4% increase to max stats that you won't actually need. So go 7 heavy. We are an Imperial. We have a massive 2k max health, highest health bonus in the game. We also have the highest stam bonus in the game, which a couple of other races do have. This is 2k max stamina as well. And a completely broken passive. Reduces the cost of all of your abilities, including ultimates, by 3%. Which, yes, stacks with this. So that's chosen for that on purpose. And when you deal direct damage, you heal yourself with 379, which can crit. And you restore 333 magicka and stamina. And this can happen every 5 seconds. That 333 doesn't look that much, but when you stack it alongside taking damage with a Constitution passive once every 4 seconds, if this fires once and your red diamond fires once together, you basically got 1,000 resources back across the board. It's really nice, and that can happen constantly. So although it doesn't look like much on paper, that resource gain is absolutely insane. It's very powerful indeed. But above all, this reduction to cost and flat resources is really nice. Both of those help get our ultimate costs and every other cost that we've got down. This is why we double bar it, because we want cheap ultis and cheap abilities across the board. Now, one more passive that is very important, then I'm going to get to the gear, and this is going to start making a lot more sense, and then you can get excited about your ulti regen even more. Medicinal use. There is a video in the description which shows you how to get your alchemy level up really fast. Then you can just get rid of all these points, you don't need them anymore, and just keep medicinal use. I showed you earlier a potion which you can choose to use, which is bloody expensive, so the choice is yours, and it had 47.6 seconds on it, with a 45-second cooldown. That is because at base, it would be under the cooldown. This extends it to over the cooldown, so you can have 100% uptime on it. Now, potions, by the way, I did show you one that you can use as a choice, if you can afford it, and if you like hunting dragons for the materials. Failing that, try pots all day long. Max health, max stam, max magic, all given back in one pop, plus you have recovery for 47 seconds. It's nuts. Really powerful. Try pots all day, unless you can afford these. Now I'm going to get into the gear. First of all, do not panic. There is a weapon set I'm using that is a bonus to us, but you don't have to have it. So before I go into that, don't panic. You can use a crafted 2-piece. You can use one that I'm going to recommend, or anything you like. But we are obviously going to show you the optimal setup. Starting with a one-handed shield of Master. So the Master's Axe and Master Shield, or Sword Dagger, it doesn't matter what it is, but one-handed shield of the Master's set from VDSA. I will put a link in the description, actually, for VDSA. There is a new All About Mechanics dungeon guide video for that, or relatively new, it's been out for a little while, explaining how to do everything if you are not familiar with it, and this will probably help you get the weapon. Now, the reason we've chosen this is because when you deal damage with Puncture, which, by the way, is our taunt, you will actually heal. The amount you heal is based off of your healing received. So if you've got healing received bonuses in your group, or just your passives alone, this heal actually gets higher. It doesn't show in the stats, but it does get higher, and when you actually apply it, you see it. Now, on our own, without any additional bonuses, based on the way that we're set up currently, we do actually heal for about 3,500. Which means every time we taunt, if it's a heal, because we've got less than 100% health, we will actually gain resistance equivalent to that. Now, as you saw earlier, we had 27, almost 28,000 resistances, which is pretty nice. And of course, we could do with a little bit of a buff, because we don't hit 3,300. If you have minor resolve and minor ward, of course, that will push it up a little bit. We still won't hit 3,300. But if you do taunt for the 3.5, you will hit cap with the minor buff given. So we'll use a skill here just to lose some health. I do not use this skill actively, so do not take this as gospel. I do not use this skill on this build. It is negative. Let's just lose some health. There we go. We'll put this back where it belongs. Now, as you can see here, my resistances are 27,888. 27,841. Stab it. 31,249. All I need now is the minor resistance buff and it will stay with me. Now, obviously, it's a very short duration. It only lasts 3 seconds, but if you're taunting multiple things and you are less than 100% health, it will give you a resistance bonus. It's very, very nice indeed. However, if you don't want to utilize this, you don't want the free heal from a taunt, and you don't want the resistances from this particular set, you can use perhaps Warrior's Poet or anything you want. This has a max health bonus. Brilliant. You'll have more health. So instead with minor toughness, you go into 49k health, you go to 50. So you can have that. Or you can use something that has a resistance bonus on it, or something that has a stamina bonus, or anything you like. You can use any 2-piece bonus here that you like. Most builds are 5-5-2. This is not. And you'll see why when I get to the jewelry. But this weapon can be anything you want. But if you've got the Master's Sword and Board, you will benefit quite a lot from it. Now, this is decisive on purpose because our ulti gain is very, very high. So we want to add to that. So every time you generate ultimate, you have a 20% chance to get 1 extra point. Now, these poisons here, if you hit a target that can be immobilized with a light attack or a heavy attack or a weapon ability on this bar, you will immobilize them and grant unstoppable to you, meaning you can't be knocked down or CC'd or all that good stuff. Now, this will also break you free. So if an ability is running, say for example a damage over time, which we don't have running at the moment, this can also apply to that. So with certain weapons, say for example Wall of Elements on an ice staff, this can actually fire without you pressing any buttons. But above all, basically this will stop you from being knocked down. So if you're in a big ad pull and things are flying, heavy attacks left, right and center, and you actually apply this poison, you will get away with some of those lucky, oh shit, I missed a block and got knocked down stuff. You won't have to worry about that. You don't have to use these poisons if you don't want to, but I have found them very effective in certain content. Failing that, you can use whatever glyph you want. Now, the back bar, you can use any 2-piece set you want. The reason I've chosen Warrior's Poet is because, as an option, you could use Warrior's Poet on the front. Or anything else. If you're not using the Master's Sword and Board, it helps to match the two, so then you don't lose any bonuses when you swap bars. But for the sake of it, we've got more health on the back bar. This is decisive also because we are generating ultimate all the time. This has a heightened chance to increase your ultimate regen while you're on that bar. So it's really, really handy. But like I said earlier, if you are using a Crusher enchant on this, which you can choose to use, that's when you really want to be using the Ice Wall of Elements because it will be fired much more every time it ticks, and you can keep that up. And then you'd probably want to change this to Infused. But if you're not doing that, Decisive's just fine. Now, more ulti regen and resistance bonuses as well if you get hit. We are using Bloodspawn. This is a bonus to recovery, so when our sword is down, when our sword and board blocking is down, or we're on the back bar, we will generate stamina, which will really, really help. So if your stamina is really, really low, block with the back bar and your front bar will recover, which is handy. But also, when you take damage, you have a 6% chance to generate 14 ultimate and increase your physical and spell resistance by 6450 for 6 seconds. So if you don't have a taunt on at the moment, that can heal you. For example, your maximum health, you've got a damage shield on, you're not taking any damage. You won't get resistance from this. If you don't have minor resolve and minor ward on, obviously you won't get resistance from those. But Bloodspawn can fill the gap. So during mechanics, you can actually generate a really high resistance bonus. It's not guaranteed. It does proc a hell of a lot, but it's not guaranteed. So you do want to make sure you fill the gaps with this. This is why this is there. But for the rest of the time, this will fire. This has a 6-second cooldown as well. So as soon as it runs out, you can apply it again. So in the best case scenario, you could generate 14 ultimate every 6 seconds on top of your passive light attack and heavy attack ultimate, on top of your heroic slash if you're using it, and on top of your invigorating drain, and on top of your corpse consumption as well. It's nuts. Your ulti regen is crazy. Now, we've got that on the helmet and shoulders, of course. Heavy on both with health enchants. Reinforced on both of them as well. Now, we've got a reinforced chest of the dragon. This will give us magical recovery, which we do need. Healing taken, meaning our healing done by us or other people will be improved. Maximum health bonus, of course, to increase our max health. And reduction to ultimate cost, which is why this is so bloody low. 15% reduction to cost, 3% here for this particular ability, and 3% as an Imperial. So make sure you have the 5-piece set of that, perhaps on the body if you can afford to. So the Dragon and Bloodspawn and the Master's weapons, or any weapons of your choice, it really doesn't matter. And finally, the final ultimate reduction to cost is Potentates. You need to get this from PvP, or you can buy it off the market. Health on every single one of them, and mag recovery on every single one of them. This again will give you stam recovery, so if you are on the back bar or your sword and board is not blocking at the moment, you will generate more stamina from these two bonuses, which is very, very nice. So you can keep your sustain up. And at the same time, this reduces the cost of all ultimate abilities by 10%. 10% reduction here, 15% reduction here, 3% reduction here, and 3% reduction in our racial passives. which is why this is ridiculous. We have a massive reduction to cost, but we also have ultimate regen from this. We have ultimate regen from our skill line here. We have ultimate regen in our light and heavies. We have it from our heroic slash or our minor heroism. We have it from our invigorating drain. We have it from our decisive trait. We have it from our blood spawn. We have really low costs and really fast regen. It's absolutely mental. Yes, I tried this with a Nord. Yes, the resistances were quite nice and we could fiddle with certain bits and pieces. But overall, because the reduction to cost wasn't there, it took just as long to get there anyway. So the flat increase to max resources, the recovery gain from the red diamond passive, and the reduction to cost did actually outperform. This is really, really solid. So if you have been following along the way for this particular setup and you have listened to everything so far, now hopefully you've just now understood why everything is how it is. Now, we are going to go into the champion points. Now, this is pretty much what I use for all content at the moment, but you can change this out if you really need to. 81 into Ironclad to make sure we reduce the amount of incoming direct damage that we receive. 49 and 49 for all other damage that we receive, regardless of what its damage type is in terms of dot or direct. This is physical and magic type damage across the board. And also thick skin to reduce the dot damage we take by 23%. Just note, by the way, if you need to break free, use a stamina ability straight afterwards because its cost will be 80% less. 90 points into quick recovery to increase the amount of healing we receive from ourselves and other people. Also, you have the field physician passive. Yes, we have a ninja res button, but just in case it's not ready, if you do resurrect people, you take less damage while doing so. 51 points into warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 65 in tenacity to mean that if we... 65 points in tenacity, meaning if we do heavy attack with our ice staff or our sword and board, we do get 13% back on top of what we already get. 75 points into Arcanus to make sure that we've got really high mag recovery because we do want to utilize our magical abilities for utility. And 72 points into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost reduction. And of course, 3.4% into Tumbling because we do dodge roll occasionally and we want to get the cost down a little bit if we can. 75 points into Blessed. We will heal. We will need to heal. We want to make sure we get as many points into this as possible without hitting too high diminished returns. 25 extra points into here will only give you a 1% bonus, so don't bother wasting your points. 51 into Elfborn, meaning if we do crit heal, or crit damage in fact, it will be higher. 23 into Elemental Expert, just to increase our damage that we do with elemental damage by 6%. It's not that important, but we do damage over time. We do have some ice abilities coming out, so it will help. This you can put a little bit higher if you really want to, but it only happens if you crit. This is based on all heals. This is based if you crit, and this will just plug the gaps if you do want to do a bit of damage. This is in here for 1 point just because I've got nowhere else to put it, because I'm utilizing a rather unusual tree on this particular build, just like I do with the Almost Immortal Warrior. 100 points in Thermitage. Do you need to go all the way to 100 on most builds? No. But we want to spend 120 points in this tree. So any damage over time is boosted by 25%, which is nice. Mighty has got 20 points in it just because we can, because then our light and heavies and all that good stuff do a tiny bit more damage. Again, damage is not the key point of this particular tree. We've just utilized what we can. We don't really care for physical crit, and we don't really care for physical penetration. So we'll just put them here to give us something. The reason it's all here is for this. When you fall below 20% health, you gain Major Heroism, granting you 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 8 seconds, and this can occur every 20 seconds. Remember, we're a vampire, we can go low health very safely, and if we do, not only do we have Minor Heroism, but we also now have Major Heroism. So our ultimate regen just went up again. You can fire off Malcolms left, right, and center. It is friggin' nuts. So, hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully you now have an understanding of how this particular build is designed. It is made mostly for an off-tank, but you can main tank with it if you are careful. Just bear in mind, of course, heavy attacks that come to you need to be blocked, so if you're using Invigorate and Drain right now, make sure you block and stop that ability. But above all, what you need to do, keep your stuff down, keep your resist buffs up, CC everything that you can, and in the meantime, build ultimate like it's going out of fashion. It's very, very effective. You can have stupid uptime on your ultimate. We'll give you an example here. We'll consume a corpse and then just build ulti. Really doesn't take very long at all to get another one ready. And of course, you can consume your resistance buff if you really need to. You can debuff the targets. You can keep up CCs. You can keep up your protection bonuses. And Malcolm's pretty much now ready to go again. No DPS can keep it up that often Unless, of course, there's lots and lots of bodies on the ground, and they're utilizing this corpse siphon ability. There we go, already. Back up to 100 almost. It's very, very fast. So what you should be doing is keeping aggro, keeping CCs on stuff, and of course pumping out as many ultimates as fast as possible. And decisive also, like I said, helps like hell with that. We just fired off 3 Malcolms almost in less than a minute. It's disgusting. So, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of the channel, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the website XynodeGaming.com. And don't forget also, I do live stream every night from 10 PM UK time on Twitch, unless I say otherwise on Twitter, or maybe I'm recording or whatever. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.